Hello and welcome to China Talks, an exploration of China through the eyes of those who know. The image of football in China has been damaged by match-fixing scandals which have seen officials and players punished. But with news like this dominating the headlines, people tend to forget about grassroots efforts in China. I spoke to Terry Singh, an English FA coach with almost a decade's worth of experience here in China, about the development that football is undergoing at the lower levels. Terry, thank you for joining us today. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in the grassroots side of football in China and what your thoughts on it are?
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Stu. Grassroots football in China, my involvement has been nearly been involved for more than 10 years. After the World Cup in 2002 in Japan and Korea, there was a big push to get more Chinese youngsters into football. And I was invited in 2004 by a national program, for schools program, and the purpose of me was to teach in middle schools. And football here is a big need to progress, yes.
Okay, and now the China Football School program, that was initiated in 2009 by the Sports Ministry and the Education Ministry, and they've even got a foreign consultant on board to try and help push that along. Now, what are your thoughts on that specific program and any other programs going on around China?
These are good initiatives. Everything that is going to be good for Chinese football is good. But remember, these kind of initiatives are very short term. We're looking at long term development in grassroots football. In grassroots football in China, it has to be organic. It has to be, Chinese people's spirit to basically, develop the game. This people or clubs setting up initiatives here in China, I hope it could be long-term involvement, but what I've seen from my experiences of teaching at grassroots for over 20 years is that usually they're short-term kind of developments. Now,
the recent match-fixing scandals associated with Chinese football, do you think this has had a negative impact on grassroots efforts?
What we've got to remember here is that the professional level is totally different to the grassroots level. It all depends on the coach. The coach will go out and coach that child. If he's happy, that's good. The parents are happy. But it does send a negative kind of vibe in the community. But when I first arrived here and in 2004, I remember asking my colleague, tell me more about the national game. He said, no, we don't talk about it because there's a lot of match fixing. Now, for me, as a positive grassroots coach, where there's a problem, there's a solution. And those solutions are challenges. So we have to face challenges and we have to deal with them. And then we can improve our game and so on. The professional level is totally different from the grassroots level. Why? Because the professional people are not doing anything at the grassroots. That's the reason.
Right, so there's a disconnect between the grassroots level and the professional level.
Definitely.
So with so much investment in the Chinese Super League, is there a mentality of top-down development, and does this have a negative impact upon your efforts, for example? What
the moment is that in China, the Chinese Super League is to get good players from Europe, pay a lot of money, and the fans come in. It's short-term based because these professional players coming from England or Europe, countries where they're coming to their retirements and they're coming in and just trying to get some experience, but they go back. That does nothing in the future for the game. Professional clubs who have a lot of money should go and tap into the communities, and education is the most important part, schools and so on.
Now, you're coaching at one of the prestigious sports schools in China. Are you teaching your students to be coaches?
I'm teaching my students to be open-minded, be creative, learn. If they want to become a football coach, if they want to become something in life, they need to have life skills. They need to be challenged. They need to be dedicated, disciplined. In my profession, I've been for a long time, this is very important, and teaching them new methods of coaching is very important, because when they go out into the communities and they're teaching young children, it has to be interesting. At the moment, nothing is that's missing at the moment at the grassroots. It's not so much fun because the mentality is not there.
Why do you think there aren't so many youth academies attached to professional teams in China?
In China, there are some clubs who do have youth academies, but that's not enough. We need to have more. The reason is quality. If there's not enough quality coaches, you will not get quality players to progress into the first team. So it's very important that clubs realize that if they want to develop their club from the top tier to the bottom, they need to process in many different ways to progress at the team. And youth development is very important also, yes.
Okay, so you've talked about the importance of coaches. Does China have difficulty finding quality coaches?
Definitely. Quality coaches is lacking in this game.
So what's the solution to that?
The solution is simple. I think the Chinese Football Association, schools, clubs who have the passion for football cooperate with clubs from overseas, and then they can build a link and invite coaches to become teachers and coach them and to improve their game, improve their knowledge is very important. More foreign coaches working alongside Chinese coaches is very important. And also, you got to remember, Chinese coaches, they don't have the footballing blood. You need to have footballing blood to. It's not only passion. Passion comes from here, the heart, but they also should start to think about the development of the game. How can they improve? And this is by going on courses, learning, reading, finding out, more about it. And there are some really good coaches here in China. Don't get me wrong, but they're very hard to find. Just like there is a lot of good talent, raw talent in China, players, but we lose them when they get to their teenagers, whatever, because nobody can nurture them to go further. So there's a lot of little kind of challenges like that. But the most important part is professional clubs getting involved in the communities. Then you will feel more kind of things opening up.
Now, you've said that there's a need for Chinese clubs to link up with foreign clubs and they can both benefit from that arrangement. But isn't there a danger that it might just be a commercial arrangement on the part of the foreign club hoping to tap into the Chinese market?
The whole purpose is development. So if that chairman of that club has a lot of money, his emphasis should be on development, the grassroots. So if they have that, the future will be better. So I hope those people with money, they can understand that the grassroots football is a very important part to play in Chinese football.
Yeah, now, Asian football's dominated by South Korea and Japan at present, and Japan had a massive grassroots drive. And lots of football fans in China are fixated on the question of when are we going to be better than the Japanese national team? Now, do you think this is a useful question?
Okay. The national team you got to remember this, is that the quality players come from basic level of coaching, basic level of nurturing and having quality coaches around them. These players who are playing in the national team now maybe didn't have quality coaches around them, and that's why they are kind of not doing very well. But when they qualified for their first World Cup in 2002, there was a very big push. So the momentum should be, you keep it going, but should learn from experiences why we're not doing very well at the national game. It all stems down to one reason. Let's create something at the grassroots. And structures in schools and so on is very important.
Former NBA star Yao Ming recently stated during the Government 2 sessions that he believes that sport should be brought back into education. It shouldn't be just about a way to gain national glory. Now, what's your idea on his views, and how does that tie in with grassroots development?
This is wonderful. China needs role models, people like Yao Ming and so on. To highlight there's an issue, it's a need, and sports and education, young people, we need to push that, and we need to have good teachers, good coaches to develop young players for the future of the sports in China. It's very important.
And on the issue of role models, do you think it'll be useful that David Beckham's just come on board as the CSL ambassador?
Any profile name is good for the game of China, but remember, we're looking at the commercial side here. We're looking at profiling the game or sport or whatever, but everything has to start from the community. It has to start from the education. Has to start from the grassroots. These people have done it, so it's like showing their picture and oh yeah, I'm happy, but it doesn't push the person to you have to do something a bit more. That's the most important thing. Yeah, go out there and do it.
Okay, thank you, Terry, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
If you have any questions or suggestions about today's topic, please feel free to write in at the address down below, and be sure to join us soon for another edition of China Talks.